Today, we're talking about one of those basics that isn't glamorous. It's not particularly thrilling, but it is important because, like all punctuation moves, we punctuate to make our writing more clear and more understandable to our readers. Today, we're talking about punctuation rules that maybe you just need a refresher on, and that is punctuating different types of titles. So, when we are writing and we're writing about any text, we're probably going to run up against an opportunity where we need to give that text a title and we need to punctuate it in some way. I've seen students who are so confused that they even use quotation marks, italics, and underline a title because they aren't sure which punctuation to use. So they just try to use all three. I want to give you some rules today to help you think about this. And I want to show you some examples to see how writers are actually using this move in action. So, pretty much all kinds of titles need punctuation, whether it's a book, a short story, a poem, a song, an album, a play, a website, or even a spaceship. We run into lots of opportunities in our writing to punctuate titles. Now, I want to give you kind of a general rule of thumb because nobody expects you to memorize every single type of title and every single type of punctuation that you might need. So when you're in a pinch and you just don't know, I want you to think about this. Is this a whole text or is this a smaller part of something bigger? Is it a part or is it a whole? If we're looking at a whole text, a big work, a book, a movie, a collection of poetry, an entire TV series, an album, those things go in italics. They are a bigger piece of work. But all of those smaller things, episode titles, essay titles, poem titles, titles of songs on an album, those smaller pieces go into quotation marks. So the first thing that we want to think about when we're punctuating titles is this a small work or is this a big work? Could this be collected with other similar things and put into a bigger work? Or is this kind of the big thing itself? Now let's look at some examples of professional writers using this move in their writing. Here we have two different types of texts. We have New Yorker, which is a periodical. It's a magazine. It's also a website. So that goes in italics. And we also have the title of a book in italics. Here's why this matters. I've never read Blind Man's Bluff. I don't know it. I am familiar with the New Yorker, however. But if I'm not familiar with Blind Man's Bluff and I'm reading through this piece by Jess deCourcy Hinds on LitHub and I come across this title, I no longer have to wonder. I can see author of Blind Man's Bluff, and Blind Man's Bluff is italicized, and so I know it's a book. That's why it matters the way we punctuate, because we might be punctuating for readers who aren't familiar and they don't know, and so we need a way to tell them. Here's another example that has a lot of titles in it, 2 album titles and 2 movie titles. Now, notice that the writer lets us know that those movies are movies by using the word film. She's made a film, lent her voice to a Disney film. And we also have album and record that let us know kind of what we're talking about, right? Those are those context clues. But Lemonade, Black is King, Everything is Love, and The Lion King are all italicized because those are big works, big texts that Beyonce has created. So paired with those context clues, film, movie, record, album, we know exactly what this writer is talking about, even if we have never listened to or watched those particular texts. And here's an example from The Ringer that shows why it's important to know the difference between italics and quotation marks when we're talking about titles. This little sentence is from a review of a TV episode. And so we have the writer referring to the TV series House of the Dragon in italics, because that's the big work. But then the episode title, We Light the Way, goes in quotation marks. Without those quotation marks, I think as a reader, I would be really confused. I wouldn't know what We Light the Way is at all. But because it's in quotation marks, I'm like, oh, okay, that is the title of this episode that we're talking about. So in your writing, can you use this part or whole rule? Where do you need to punctuate titles? What texts are you writing about that beg for you to do this so that it can be clear for the reader? Where are you talking about big whole texts that go in italics? Where are you talking about smaller pieces that go in quotation marks so that the reader completely understands the ideas that you're trying to communicate? So much for watching Mini Moves for Writers. We hope you'll subscribe so that you don't miss a single writing move.